Since January of 2026, you have perhaps sent 2,000 applications and most likely only heard from 150. And is it safe to assume all rejections? I want you to know this is not a personal failure. It is not a reflection on you. This is a national crisis. Hi, welcome to Qualified and Broke. I create weekly documentaries, and this week we are exploring the 5 dangers to youth unemployment. So grab a hot beverage and let's get started. According to Q4 of the Labour Force Survey report, there are currently 4.6 million young South Africans unemployed right now. The youth is stuck, not searching, not learning, not moving, just stuck. So what does this do to a person? What does it do to a community? What does it do to a country? A trap so elegant in its cruelty that corrupt officials probably feel no remorse because they escaped decades earlier. A 22-year-old who graduates into a broken system has a 50-50 chance of making it. They will most likely spend 2 years sending out applications and never secure that first crucial job, simply because they have no experience, and South African employers increasingly demand it, even for entry-level positions. So they get rejected year after year. The wider the gap, the worse it gets. Research from SALDRU at UCT found that long-term unemployment among young people defined as searching for more than 1 year has risen from 40% in 2015 to over 50% in 2025. After a year without work, your network shrinks, your confidence erodes, your CV gap grows, and employers see that gap and move on to the next application, never giving you grace. The World Bank has directly identified South Africa's economic growth over the past decade as averaging only 0.7% annually, leaving real per capita income at 2007 levels. Fewer jobs are being created, the competition for each one intensifies, and the youth who needed the system to work are left running on a treadmill that accelerates every year. So, as the unemployed youth, we find ourselves stuck at home and slowly becoming the aunts and uncles we saw would never become. Our parents can't retire because at 28, they are still looking after you. In some cases, they even start to resent you for failing. The consequence here, no experience equals no job, no income, no transport to interviews, no professional network. The longer the gap, the less employable you are. The trap does not just hold you still, it pulls you backwards. Studies show that people at the lower end of the income spectrum, where long-term unemployment youth are concentrated, suffer from mental distress up to 3 times more often than those at the higher end. They are more likely to experience violent crimes and traumatic events. In January of 2026, researchers from Sisulu University published a peer-reviewed study in the South African Journal of Psychiatry. They studied unemployed young people in Danzane, a township in the Eastern Cape. What they found was not surprising to anyone who has lived it, but it is important because now it is documented in clinical language with evidence and in a scientific journal. The specific conditions documented include alcohol and drug use disorders, stress and anxiety disorders, mood disorders, and affective disorders including depression. These are not personality traits. These are clinical responses to a sustained absence of purpose, income, structure, and hope. The study out of Mdantsane used the words that young people use themselves to describe the experience: worthlessness, social isolation, shame. One participant described not wanting to be around peers and prefers being alone. This is not a private or isolated matter. As a generation, we are suffering from mental health, diagnosed and undiagnosed. We mask it with humor on TikTok, weekend partying, everyday green plant use, finding any coping mechanism just to get through the day. And when a government system fails to provide pathways to employment, the psychological consequences of that failure are treated as personal problems requiring individual therapy. The state has outsourced the cost of its own failure onto the bodies and minds of its youngest citizens. I'll not even get into the high cost of therapy and medication in private healthcare or the long wait list in public healthcare. The consequence here? Unemployment equals loss of structure, purpose, and income. That leads to clinical depression, anxiety, and substance use, which reduces the ability to job search effectively, leading to deeper unemployment. The mental health crisis is not separate from the job crisis. It is caused by it. Not in employment, not in education, not in training. There's a crucial distinction that most news coverage misses. The official unemployment rate only counts young people who are actively looking for work. Stats SA Decade in Review found that 1.9 million youth are classified as discouraged work seekers, people who have given up. There are more discouraged youth than the discouraged adults. Young people are giving up faster than the older generation. In a country with South Africa's history, this carries enormous weight. The qualified are joining the NEET rate, and every year our human capital, the skills, the confidence, the professional identity we should be building depreciates, some never fully recovering. The unfortunate consequence here is the permanent exclusion from the formal economy for a growing share of an entire population. Academic research published in 2024 in the journal Cogent Social Sciences, studying Bopelong and Nyanga townships, found something that should be read in Parliament. Many young people are excluded from access to fundamental human rights, which exposes them to multidimensional development challenges and pushes them towards a life of gangs and crimes. UCT's research into youth violence, published in June 2025, stated, when criminal gangs are running amok in communities, it is not because they are criminal in nature, but down to identity issues. A young man who cannot find work, cannot present himself professionally, and cannot build a recognized social identity through legitimate employment will find identity elsewhere. The Commission for Gender Equality's 2024 report on male gangs at Gauteng, KZN, and Western Cape found that absent fathers, unemployment, and unstable family environments are the primary push factors into gang memberships. And once a young person is inside a gang, the income, the belonging, the identity, the protection are all real. And the gender dimension here is equally severe, though different. While unemployment pushes young men towards gang membership and or crime as an identity substitute, it leaves young women exposed to gender-based violence, financial dependence on a partner, inability to leave dangerous situations, prostitution, and being vulnerable to exploitative relationships. These are all intensified by having no income and no economic exit. This is the danger that compounds all the others. Every generation that passes through the unemployment crisis without ever entering the economy is a generation that does not pay taxes. They don't build wealth. They don't start any businesses. They don't have children with economic security. They participate in democracy with rage rather than hope. South Africa's working age population is 42.1 million people. Of those, only 24.9 million are actually working. The 17.1 million are outside the labor force entirely. The tax base that funds hospitals, schools, police, and social grants depend on people being employed. Every young person who never enters the formal economy is a gap in that tax base. Every gap means less funding for the schools that are supposed to prepare the next generation. When young people watch elections happen and nothing changes, trust in democratic institutions collapses. And with that, other things grow, such as populism, extremism, and criminal networks with political connections. This is the ultimate danger of youth unemployment, the production of a generation that has lost faith in the country's ability to work for them, and that loss of faith is difficult to rebuild. If you made it this far, thank you so much for tuning in. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this video and how I can improve this channel. Comment down below. With that being said, I hope you have the best week, and I'll see you again next Wednesday.